Hi guys, Pistol Pete here for Hucking Aces. Today we're going to be talking about flight numbers and how you can utilize them to determine whether or not a disc is right for your game. So, a lot of you have probably heard the terms flight numbers before, but you might not know what they mean. So let's go ahead and talk about them right now. I've got a disc here, and as you can see there are 4 numbers on the bottom of it. These are called the flight numbers, and we've got speed, glide, turn, and fade. And let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about each one so you can understand whether or not disc's properties are going to be something that you're looking for when you're getting a new disc. Let's start with speed. Speed is the way a disc is rated, and it goes from 1 to 13. The higher the number, the faster you have to throw that disc for it to perform like it was designed. So you might have a putter that's a 1, a 2, or a 3, maybe a 4, and you're going to have a high-speed driver like this. This one's a 13, but they make 12s, 14s, and there's every number in between. The higher the number, the faster you have to throw it. So I highly recommend for beginner players, go ahead and find a disc with a lower speed rating. Something like a 6 or a 7 is a great driver for a beginner player. There's a lot of fantastic discs out there. There's T-Birds, Leopards, a lot of really fantastic mid-ranges and fairway drivers that have lower speeds and are going to be more forgiving and much more useful for beginner players or players with lower arm speeds. So let's talk about the second number now, and that's glide. Now glide is a term used to describe a disc's ability to stay in the air. So the higher the glide, and usually it goes from 1 to 7, the higher the glide, the longer that disc is going to stay in the air and the further it's going to fly. This doesn't mean that a disc with higher glide goes higher or anything like that. It just means that when you throw it, the way that it's aerodynamically designed, it's going to have more lift, just like an airplane. It's going to stay in the air longer. It's almost going to float there. It's not going to float, but it's almost going to float there. A disc with high glide is one that's going to stay in the air longer and give you more distance. So let's talk a little bit now about this third number, turn. Turn is also sometimes called stability. That's another term you're going to hear a lot in disc golf. You're going to hear discs referred to as stable, or overstable, or understable. And it's really confusing if you don't know what those terms mean, but that's why this video is here. We're going to teach you all about that. Turn is the disc's tendency to, if you're a right-hand, backhand player like most are, to go ahead and cut to the right once it leaves your hand. High-speed stability, I talked a little bit about it in one of my other videos. As the disc spins, the faster it spins, it's going to be able to create a more stable flight, just like I said, a spiral football. Now, if a disc is very, very understable, and that's going to be a disc or a number with a lower number, so like anything from -2 is understable. You're going to have like as low as -5 a lot of times. The lower that number is, the more likely that disc is to go ahead and turn to the right, and the more likely you are to turn the disc over if you're throwing it, and you have to really be careful of your form. A lot of times people will use a disc with a really low turn rating as a roller disc or something like that. That's definitely something that you can do, and that's one of the things you want to look for in a disc is its turn rating, so you can determine whether or not it's stable or understable or overstable. Finally, we have the fade rating. Now, the fade is the disc's tendency at the end of its flight to cut over to the left. Again, that's for right-hand, backhand players. But a lot of times you'll see a player throw a disc and it might cut to the right, and all of a sudden you'll see it kind of slow down in the air and bank hard to the left. And that's going to have to do with the turn and the fade. The turn is going to determine, like I said, whether or not or how hard that disc banks to the right in the air, and then if it's got a higher fade number, it's going to bank harder to the left. So you definitely want to be cognizant of that, because those are going to be things that determine whether or not a disc is accurate and whether or not it's going where you want it to go. Fade is usually rated from 0 to 5. A disc that's rated a 0 or a lower number like a 1 is going to finish straighter. A disc that's rated with a 4 or a 5 is going to bank harder to the left. Those are all useful properties. Sometimes you want a disc that's going to finish straight. Sometimes you need a disc that you know at the end is going to taper off to the left or to the right, depending on how you throw it, because you might need it to get around an obstacle. But those are the flight numbers explained. I'll go ahead and put a few links in the show notes so that you can look at some pictures of explanations for the flight numbers. I'll show a few flight diagrams from inbounds disc golf, so you can kind of get a picture in your head on how the ratings work and how the flight works. But thanks a lot for watching. We've got a lot more great content coming out, so be sure to check out our Facebook page, check out our YouTube videos, because we've got a lot more on this channel. And thanks a lot. Keep hucking aces, guys.